Life After Divorce opens with rupture rather than romance, grounding its queer narrative in betrayal, displacement, and the complicated ways women are asked to pick up emotional debris left behind by men's choices. And this opening scene immediately resonates with lesbian and LGBTQ+ audiences by centering a young woman's decision to align herself not with authority, but with empathy. The narrator's father's explosive rage at Ariel's infidelity is less shocking than revealing, exposing a cruelty and possessiveness that strips him of moral high ground and reframes the cheating not as a singular sin, but as part of a larger imbalance of power. Watching Ariel collapse in apology, begging and humiliated, the narrator witnesses not just a breakup, but the social expectation that women must perform remorse to be granted mercy, even when the relationship itself was unequal or suffocating. Her choice to lie on the floor and console Ariel instead of packing her bags is an act of quiet rebellion, one that many queer women recognize as the moment they stop aligning themselves with patriarchal logic and instead choose solidarity with women, even flawed ones. Living with Ariel is not romanticized. It is messy, contradictory, and deeply human, reflecting how queer life often unfolds not through idealized found families, but through imperfect, negotiated bonds. Ariel's religiosity and disapproval of the narrator's lesbian identity expose the painful irony of internalized shame, particularly for women who compartmentalize their own transgressions while condemning others. The narrator's awareness of Ariel's secret, held back out of care rather than leverage, highlights a moral maturity shaped by marginalization, as queer women often learn early when honesty heals and when it harms. This silence is not weakness but strategy, a recognition that truth without safety can be violent. The domestic conflicts over money, majors, and redecorating further ground the story in realism, showing how love does not erase dysfunction but coexists with it, especially when women are expected to be both practical and self-sacrificing. The narrator's frustration mirrors a generational tension familiar to many queer viewers, caught between survival advice rooted in fear and a longing for creative self-definition. Penny's arrival shifts the emotional temperature of the scene, embodying possibility rather than obligation, and her presence immediately contrasts with the heaviness of the household. Penny's coolness is not framed as superiority but as ease, the ease of a woman who seems comfortable in herself, whose energy feels expansive rather than judgmental. For lesbian audiences, Penny represents the tantalizing figure of mutual recognition, someone who exists outside family drama and moral surveillance, offering a glimpse of what life might feel like without constant self-policing. The remembered kiss between them lingers not as scandal but as unfinished business, a moment of connection paused rather than resolved, and the narrator's determination to kiss her back this time reflects the slow-building courage required to claim desire in a world that often teaches queer women to hesitate. Society's discomfort with women loving women is woven throughout the scene not through overt condemnation, but through subtle pressures, religious doctrine, financial anxiety, and the expectation that women's choices must always be justified in practical terms. This discomfort persists because women's same-sex love threatens narratives that define women primarily through service to men, family, or economic utility. Ariel symbolizes the cost of repression, a woman fractured by belief systems that deny her wholeness, while Penny symbolizes authenticity without apology, and the narrator stands between them, learning that visibility is not a single leap but a series of choices about who to protect, who to confront, and when to speak. For women broadly, the scene resonates as a meditation on loyalty, longing, and the fear of choosing oneself, when doing so may destabilize fragile arrangements. It honors the reality that queer awakening often occurs amid chaos rather than clarity, and that love can emerge alongside resentment, care alongside disappointment. By refusing spectacle and centering emotional truth, Life After Divorce challenges audiences to see lesbian desire not as fantasy or rebellion for its own sake, but as a search for alignment between inner life and outer action. The narrator's resolve to kiss Penny back is not framed as conquest but as self-recognition, a declaration that her feelings deserve space to exist without apology, and in that quiet determination, the film affirms that becoming visible is less about defiance than about finally allowing oneself to be honest in a world that profits from women's silence. Scene 2 of Life After Divorce deepens the film's emotional terrain by returning to Ariel not as an object of observation or contradiction, but as a woman in collapse. And in doing so, it invites queer audiences to sit with the complicated pull of loyalty, shared history, and unresolved tenderness that so often binds women together long after vows, promises, or boundaries have been broken. Ariel's tearful phone call reframes her not as the guarded, judgmental figure seen earlier, but as someone finally stripped of defenses, and the narrator's immediate response reveals a familiar truth for many queer women. Distance is easy to vow in moments of anger, but compassion forged in shared survival is much harder to abandon. The awkwardness of returning to Ariel's life after being forcibly expelled from her home lingers as emotional residue, underscoring how conflict between women is rarely clean or final, especially when it is rooted in fear rather than malice. That earlier argument, left intentionally unresolved, hangs over the scene like unfinished business, mirroring how queer relationships often exist in fragments, shaped by interruptions, misunderstandings, and the weight of unsaid things. The narrator's decision to show up despite her vow speaks to a deeply ingrained caretaker instinct, one many women recognize, where strength is measured by the ability to endure, absorb, and repair, even at personal cost. The revelation of their shared upbringing reframes their dynamic not as coincidence, but as parallel response. Two women shaped by the same rigid, religiously infused environment, yet pushed in opposite directions by it. The narrator's rebellion becomes an act of self-preservation, while Ariel's compliance emerges as a strategy for safety, highlighting how queer women from similar backgrounds can internalize survival in radically different ways. Ariel's chronic dissatisfaction is portrayed not as personal failure, but as the inevitable result of chasing approval within a system that withholds it by design, particularly from women whose bodies and desires are policed. For LGBTQ+ audiences, this recognition lands with painful clarity, reflecting how conformity can promise belonging while quietly eroding the self. The narrator's desire to help Ariel see a different point of view is charged with both hope and risk, capturing the fine line between support and projection that often defines queer care. Her stated goal of freeing Ariel's mind and body speaks less to persuasion than to witnessing, the belief that liberation begins when someone is allowed to imagine themselves differently. Society's discomfort with women expressing love for each other is woven subtly through this scene, not through explicit condemnation, but through the inheritance of shame that governs Ariel's choices and self-assessment. That discomfort persists because women who love women threaten structures built on obedience, sacrifice, and moral surveillance, and Ariel embodies the psychic cost of attempting to survive within those structures without ever questioning them. The narrator's acknowledgement that her method may be considered unorthodox reveals awareness of social boundaries, yet her uncertainty underscores the absence of sanctioned pathways for queer healing, especially between women whose connection defies easy labels. For women broadly, this scene resonates as a meditation on the urge to rescue those we recognize in ourselves, the hope that by helping another woman heal, we might retroactively heal our own wounds. Ariel symbolizes the version of the self that chose safety over authenticity, while the narrator represents the cost and reward of choosing truth, and their reunion becomes less about intervention than about reckoning. The film resists framing their bond as savior and victim, instead allowing both women to exist as incomplete, searching, and deserving of grace. By centering grief, shared history, and the longing to break inherited cycles, Life After Divorce challenges audiences to see queer connection not as transgression, but as continuation, a way women pass along the courage they were once denied. This scene insists that visibility does not always arrive through declaration, but sometimes through return, through answering the phone when pride says not to, and through the quiet, radical act of believing another woman is capable of more than she has been allowed to want.